All right, I got Josh in the studio with us. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Glad to be here. Glad to get an opportunity to sit down with you, get to know a little bit about you, get an opportunity for our listeners to get to know a little bit about you. So looking forward to this. Before we jump into this, I'd like to give you an opportunity to, plug any social media-wise, if it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you use to promote yourself, your racing. Also, any sponsors you want to throw out there to thank them before we get into this.
Yeah, so you can find me. My name is Josh RD20 on all social media platforms. And Tiny Dreams Homes, they support me a lot.
RD. That's Josh RD20?
Yes, Josh RD20 on all social media platforms.
Okay. All right, so we can find that on Twitter. And let's make sure I've got that right. Josh RD. This is Chris, by the way. I'm co-host here with Mr. CJ Sports. Looking forward to talking to you here tonight. And, of course, you know, the big thing is getting guys like you to, you know, let us know where we can start following your page. And that way, you know, it kind of helps the interview process as well. And those that are listening in can kind of jump right on to where you're at as well. So, Josh RD. I'm having a hard time with that. Josh, that is RD?
Yeah, so Josh, Josh RD, and then the number 20, 20.
All right.
I'm more active
Josh
on
Doyle, no?
On Facebook and
Josh
Instagram.
Doyle. Yeah, okay. So that's going to be Josh Doyle? No, that's probably somebody out there. We'll find you on Instagram. So anyway, let's start this interview. Mr. CJ Sports, I'll give it back to you as we try to track his social media stuff down so we can get him his share there.
Josh, what got you into racing? What lit that fire up there that made you want to get into this sports and pursue a career in racing?
Yeah, actually, I grew up watching NASCAR with my dad, you know, on TV, and it's something that, you know, I always like to watch on the weekends. I always loved Jeff Gordon, and eventually I got a little steering wheel and pedals that you connect to your desk and race on, and I got, you know, immediately hooked. And then from there we went to a real simulator, and I ran that for a few months. That really got me all the way into it. And then we moved into go-karts, and then we moved into legend cars last year with Joe Ryan, race cars, and then this year late models.
You know, I must be just like in a whole different world than the rest of the kids in the world, because never once, all those times I watched NASCAR with my father, ever thought, hey, I'm going to go race. This wasn't mine how just all that just escalated that quick, and something I would have never thought about. How hard was it for you to get into sport? How was your parents ready for you to be in the sport? Did you have to kind of beg and plead to get in, or were they already on board with this?
Yeah, so I, you know, like I said, started off with the simulator, and once I got hooked and they saw that I was kind of, you know, running good on there just on the online races, my dad decided, you know, it'd be a pretty cool idea for us to go out there and for one day back and to try it out. And he actually went out there, all of us, and I did really, really good in that too. So he decided to, you know, keep going, to try and take the next step. And then I ended up going to karting full time in my first year, and that went really, really good. So like, okay, let's go try on the next thing. We went to Legend Cars, and I won a national championship in my first year on road course, second in oval. So we really started, you know, making gains and making progress, and now here we are, racing late models.
So wait a minute. So, you know, I've always wondered this process, Mr. CJ Sports. Give me just a second here because I want to dig into what he just said. So the Legends, I've heard this before, that the Legends offer road course and oval racing. Is that where the split begins? Of course, you have drivers who are oval racers, who are stock car racers, but then also you've got the open-wheel drivers who go through kind of the similar developmental process, but somewhere or another you guys split off. Is the Legends where that actually kind of happens, where the divisions really start splitting, whether you're going to go open wheel racing versus stock car racing?
Yeah, I would say so, in my opinion. You know, starting off with go-karts, I was already a big road course guy, you know, is why I feel like I had that little bit of help when I got into Legends road courses, just having that background. But I would say, yeah, for sure. Legends is kind of like that final step before you decide, okay, am I going to go oval racing and go, stock car racing, which stock car racing now has a lot of road course racing too, but it's kind of like that deciding factor, you could say.
Okay.
How hard was the transition from going from the go-kart to the Legends to the late model? How much of a learning curve is it for drivers to go from one to the other?
Yeah, all of them are really, really different. Cars, I guess you could say, go-karts having no suspension. You feel a lot of it in your butt right off the ground. And then you move up to Legends, you have a little bit of suspension, but it's a short wheelbase. So they're just really, I guess you could say, spazzy cars and aggressive cars for the amount of, I guess, power to wheelbase ratio. So that was a pretty big change. And then going to late models, just having all that power under you, full wheelbase with a lot more, tire grip, right? The tires is the biggest difference that you could feel, just having that amount of tire on the actual asphalt surface. So I'd say that's the biggest difference. And the thing I probably struggled with most is, qualifying, going from Legend cars to late models, just because the driving style is just it's so incredibly different.
So, Josh, let's bring it over this way real quick. So when I was, let's backtrack just a tad bit from what you were saying earlier. When I was 12 and 13 years old, I was begging my parents for $5 to go to the skating rink and maybe one of these remote control cars or possibly one of the cars that you put together in your bedroom. How in the world did you convince your parents to go buy you a race car? I mean, obviously you showed from the beginning that you could basically grow in the sport, right? But at what point in time did your parents sit down with you and really explain to you or work on the side of the financial obligations that racing brings? I mean, because that's the big jump right there. We can all dream about going and jumping in race cars. Financially, it's a heavy burden.
Yeah, so I do it, 14, and it wasn't something that we really talked about too much. It's just kind of something that we kind of went with. It's my dad does so much for me, and I'm super thankful that he believes in me and believes in what I'm capable of, and which is why he backs me as much as he does. So yeah, it's not really something we sat down and talked about. It's kind of just as we go, he just continues to back me and continues to push me forward.
What has it been like to be part of the Team Hornaday development team?
Yeah, Team Hornaday, I've been in it for a few months now, and it's been, awesome just having people like this and Ron that's been in sport for so long, and they're able to, Ron, he teaches us so much about driving race cars, whether it's, restarts, hitting your lines right, saving tires. He's taught me a lot, and it's something that I'm really thankful for. And then also Candace has done so much for me on the, on the racetrack and the outside of the racetrack things, just teaching me what it takes, be a race car driver and whatnot.
Yeah, my question for you, Josh, is what, we've had several of the drivers now that have come through the Ron Hornaday talent training school. What does that school actually consist of? Do you go hang out at Ron's place and you get to sit on the couch that maybe Kevin Harvick slept on, or is it a classroom type setting? What is your involvement with the Ron Hornaday school, and how do they mentor you?
Yeah, so whenever I'm over in North Carolina, I'm from Miami, but whenever I'm over in North Carolina, we're just around each other all the time, right? Whether it's the race shop or the racetrack or at the house, we're around each other a lot. Ron shows up to the racetrack with us a lot, and if you ever have any questions or anything like that, you could always call Ron or Candace, and they'll be happy to help you. So it's more so just all the time thing. It's not, I would say, really a classroom setting. I would just say it's kind of like all the time. Whenever you need help, it's there for you.
Kind of similar to manufacturer OEM support, but it's more organizational. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, back to you, Mr. CJ Sports.
How has the transition been for you this season, stepping up into these cars, and what is the goal for this season, for the 2023 season?
Yeah, so the transition was definitely it was definitely different, just getting into a full wheelbase car with a lot more power, a lot more, tire surface on the pavement. So it was, the goal of this season was really just to gain experience, right? Just being in it for my first year and going against these guys in the car store that have been racing for years and years and years and years. So what they say is that, seat time makes you into a better driver. So just trying to be in the car as much as possible and turn as many laps just to catch up with everyone else.
Now, you run in the same tracks, or are there different tracks involved as you keep moving up in the cars?
No, so in the car tour, it's like a touring series. So there's about, I believe, 16 races or 18 races a year, and we go to around 14 different racetracks, I believe. So it's just different tracks just about every single week.
All right, Josh, this is a question. I'm coming with the heavy hitter here, Josh. Hold on, Mr. CJ Sports. What does a kid like you, what do you do to get your mind? So all of us have full-time jobs, and then we have hobbies and whatnot. And so the hobbies is just kind of the way to keep us off of our full-time jobs, the daily grind. Well, you have the hobby, but what do you do outside of racing? How do you keep your mind reset? How do you stay rejuvenated? How do you stay focused? What is that outside thing that you do that's not racing, but it still kind of keeps you going?
Yeah, I would probably say fishing and hunting. Those are probably my two favorite things. I've grown up out on the boat with my dad fishing, so it's something that I've been hooked on my whole life. And then here recently, last year, I got into hunting and I killed my first buck, so now I'm really, really hooked.
Oh, wow. See, Vance, this guy's just like us. See, I mean, a race car driver is a human being, and he proves it right here. The guy loves to fish and to hunt. And I would wonder, I guess, are you going to invite Ron Hornaday hunting this year? I believe he's an avid hunter as well, correct?
Yeah, that's something, we look forward to doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's cool. Mr. CJ Sports.
Trying to think. Anything else I want to throw in there? I believe I saw something about schooling. How is that going? Have you? I believe you're doing homeschooling now to be able to focus more on doing the race thing.
So it's something that we started last year. I went to my freshman year of high school in person, and I was missed days after days after days. So we decided this past year, sophomore year, that it would probably be a good idea to go to homeschool. And since then, it's been great. I'm just able to complete my work during the week while I'm not racing, and then whenever I have travel days or anything, there isn't really much of an interference. I just complete it whenever I have the time.
And so that
it's
opens
crazy.
up this question. Go ahead, Mr. C. Sports.
I'm going to let you continue. I was going to say, it's just crazy how much of a different world we live in. Like the daughter, she homeschools as well. And it's just crazy how much we've changed where we have this option where we got the young athletes and just young people in general that are trying to better their future and do things to be able to work on a career, but also be able to do schooling at the same time and be able to knock them both out and be basically two places at the same time. So I know as much as people hate technology and these things, are just amazing because of technology, how much everybody can do and how they can further their education and further their career, be two places at once. And it just amazes me where we're at and how we're able to do this and just be able to still keep education important for what everybody's doing. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Mr. CJ Sports. And look, I mean, that's the times that we're living in, of course. When we were growing up, Mr. CJ Sports, it was get a part-time job, go to school, try to go to college, These days, there's opportunities created. Maybe it's the digital world. Maybe it's the technology. My 14-year-old son works for a major streaming company as a videographer. I could have never imagined at 14 years old working for a major streaming company, right, having a full-time, part-time job where on the weekends I make, a whole lot of money, right? I worked at Hardee's, for crying out loud, growing up. So it's definitely a different age. I mean, Josh, you're from Miami, Florida, correct?
Yes, correct.
So the family to get involved into the racing, they either have to send you up to North Carolina, they have to send you to these racetracks, or they have to follow along. This is a family effort, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, thankful to have my whole family backing me. They all support me, so it's great.
Right. And let's find out a little bit, because we're running out of time here, and I've got a very important question. I've noticed the paint schemes, and I noticed the number 20 has been consistent. As I found you on Instagram, and I'm looking through your Instagram stuff, has that what's the story behind the paint scheme? What's the story behind the number?
Yeah, so I would say behind the number, I always liked I like the number 2. That was originally my favorite number, and when I went in my first karting year, the number 2 was already taken, so I just decided to add a 0 to it, and we ended up sticking with the number 20. And the paint scheme is just, I'm good with whatever paint scheme as long as what I'm more worried about, as long as the car is fast, I'll run whatever.
Okay, so I have seen the black and the gold 20, but the one thing that has been relating, I guess, through all of it is the 20 car. So you like the number 2 and the number 0, and that's just kind of what happened. But who was your favorite driver growing up? You said you watched NASCAR. Who was it that you idolized?
Yeah, so I used to love Jeff Gordon. Everyone loved the number 24, and someone that I kind of loved to watch. And then after he retired, I moved on to the Candyman, Kyle Busch. I just liked him just for his talent, you could say. I liked how he'd just go out there and just win.
You got to boo the bow. You have to boo the bow. Mr. CJ Sports. He's a fan. He's a fan. Look, we were at Talladega, and he won, and they didn't boo the guy. And I was like, wait a minute. How in the world did I live in a time where Kyle Busch won at Talladega and he wasn't getting booed? So I coined the phrase, you got to boo the bow. You have to. Even if you like the guy, you got to boo the bow. Because that's what Kyle Busch is to most of us. But it's been great talking to you, Josh. So we know that you got to get back to Mr. CJ Sports. You take it from here, sir.
I'm going to get you out of here, Josh. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting you back again, catching up, see how the rest of the season goes. Before we get you out of here, I want to give you an opportunity to once again plug your social media, website, anything you want to put out there for the listeners to be able to follow you or keep up with your career, and any sponsors you want to throw out there real quick.
Yeah, so you could find me on Josh RD20 on all social media platforms, JOSHRD20. And just really thanks to my family, Tiny Dream Homes, and Team Hornaday for everything that they do for me.